Let's just pause for a second here, Mark. Hi, well, here we are in the control room at SARM Hookend, which you have to realize I'm biased, but I think it's probably the best recording studio in the world. It's very definitely the best residential recording studio in the world. Um, I guess one of the main reasons for that, in my opinion, is that the problem with most residential studios is that you sort of go to them because they sort of, you know, you get everything in. But very rarely is the studio up to the standard of a studio that you would find in the center of a major city. Whereas some weekend, boy, if I had the studio in London, I'm sure it would people would use it, and that's kind of an unusual thing with residential studios. It features I get technical here for a second or two. 96 channel J series. But I mean, it's really the layout in a control room, the way the size of a control room, how it feels to work in. And this is quite an exceptional control room because it's really large and yet it feels quite small. It means that people can sleep in the corners, while you're working without disturbing you. And they can be here, they can even talk, and it won't bother you because you're sort of working in the center of the control room. So it makes it a very easy control room to work in over a long period of time. The monitors, the big monitors, the way they're mounted in the room, if you sit at the back, it's kind of like having a sort of giant set of NS10s. Kind of like you dream about, NS10s are only ever that size, but the bigs here, if you sit at the back, it is like listening to a big set of NS10s. The live area, this whole building, let me just give you a little bit of history. The house that that Hookend is situated at, Hookend Studios, was originally built in 1580 for the Bishop of Reading. It's a funny old house. It's a really really sort of English manor house, in as much as it was started in 1580 and people have built bits of it on ever since. So part of it's Elizabethan and part of it's Georgian and part of it's Victorian. And of course part of it, because Dave Gilmour lived here in the 70s, Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd, part of it's kind of rock star 70s. And in the 60s, a guy called Alvin Lee, who used to play guitar with 10 Years After, had this place. And he was the first person to start using this barn area that is now the studio. Back then it was a dairy, and he started to use it to record and to rehearse 10 Years After. And then for some reason he decided he became very passionate about squash, and he decided he wanted to make it into a squash court. And he had the beams taken out, and then the whole place fell down. So it had to be completely rebuilt. And Dave Gilmour had a studio here in the late 70s. And then the studio that's here now is a purpose-built building that used all of the old timber and such from the old dairy. And this was built about 15 years ago. So the house itself, it has about, I think it's 14 bedrooms. So there's plenty of accommodation on lots of different levels. And quite a few of the bathrooms, even though they work, really do look as though they should be in a museum. And in fact, the main bathroom is a Royal Dalton bathroom that dates back to 1900. And the Royal Dalton people have actually asked if we would sell it back to them so that they could put it in their museum. So it's a very interesting house. The great thing about coming here to make a record is that in the studio building, you have enough space to set up a live band with because you have a 96 channel board, you can set anything up in the you can set up a live band. There's enough space in the control room so that you could set up all the keyboards, all the Pro Tools systems you want. There's a gym at the back, and a room at the side, a table tennis room at the side that you can make into sort of Studio B, Studio C. There's a vocal booth. You really can get a lot of work done. And because you're in an environment where you're having all your meals cooked for you and all your laundry done, and we have a great cook, Sandy, you don't really have to think about anything other than making the record. And because you're sort of out in the countryside, but you're still only an hour away from London, you can be in London actually less than an hour into the centre of London just by catching the train from Reading. So it's a very relaxed, but an environment that you can really get a lot done. Well, I find I can get a lot done.